Hey everybody, my name is Dana Fay. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope you like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you're familiar with my stuff, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about why I think that people unfairly criticizing older video games, at least older, I guess, video games that are held in high regard, is very unfair. And I say this because a lot of these classic games are classic for a reason, as in they paved the way and created the gaming industry that we have today. So there are certain aspects of these older games that I have seen people over the years often critique because they'll go back and play these games and say, oh, everybody says this game is great, but I think it's overrated. And I personally think that the term overrated is highly overused, and in fact, if at face value, all it really means is that you don't like something as much as, the average other people like it. And that's okay, but that doesn't make the product quote unquote overrated. Like, there are certain things that I don't like as much as, most of my peers like, but I wouldn't necessarily call them overrated just for the sake of, wanting to, be trendy or whatever word you're thinking. And now a lot of the critiques of these older games will come down to things like, oh, the graphics are dated, or they'll look at gameplay aspects that are, seem repetitive by today's standards, or say the world isn't big enough, or some of the mechanics feel dated. And I want to point this out because if you play a game and it isn't your cup of tea, that's fine. No game is for everyone. No product is for everyone, and that's fine. It didn't sit with you. It didn't pull you in. That's totally fine. That's fine. But to say that a product is like, overrated, or that it quote unquote it sucks, or this or that, I think is unfair, because a lot of these older games paved the way for the newer games that come. And if a game leaves a certain legacy, I think that says that the game pretty clearly did something very right. I'm going to give a few examples. Obviously, the first is one of my favorite games of all time, Zelda Ocarina of Time. And first, I'd like to make it clear that I didn't play this game when it first came out because I was in kindergarten and didn't have a Nintendo 64 at the time. I was, I think, 7 when the game came out and didn't know really that about games when it came out. I didn't play it until I was 10 years old, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Everything about it. The game single-handedly turned me into the gamer I am today, the quote-unquote hardcore gamer, even though I don't really like using that term. And yeah, I'm currently playing it right now, and you know what? I still think it's just as fun now as it was when I first played it. And I think that objectively speaking, it is still a very well-made game. You can see the care that Nintendo put into a game. That's how you can tell that a game really is, the best it can be given the hardware of the time, is how much care the developers put into making the best possible game they were capable of making with the hardware they had. And Ocarina of Time fits that to a T. But more importantly than that, it defined and paved the way for a lot of the games that came out today. Like the Z-targeting combat that made the combat, simplify, but also made it actually, work in 3D. Like, that was Ocarina of Time. I believe it also came up with the context-sensitive A button. There might have been a game that did this before that. You can let me know if there was. I'm not totally sure. But it was the first game, at least, that I played that had that. Like it's overworld, like, all that stuff, you can see the influence to this day with both Zelda games as well as non-Zelda games and other games. Like, other developers have credited games like Zelda Ocarina of Time as inspirations for the kind of games they made. That alone says that the game left an unquestionable impact and inspiration. So I think to say that a game like Ocarina of Time, to unfairly critique it for things that really most of the things that you could critique it for were symptoms of the hardware limitations of the time, which I think is completely unfair because by definition, gaming hardware and technology is always moving forward and always progressing. So of course, there's always gonna be no game is ever gonna be, the new thing forever. There's always gonna be something, that is technologically more advanced than it. That's as true back then as it is now. The games we're playing now will seem just as archaic in 20 years from now as the games that came out 20 years ago. And I think that it's important to honor these and at the very least respect these old games that paved the way for the gaming industry that we have now. And I'll give some examples of other games, like Mario 64, which is a game that I really like still. I mean, it's not my favorite Mario game. I think that Mario Galaxy 2 is a better game personally. That doesn't mean I think Mario 64 is a bad game by any means. Yeah, I think its camera angle, by today's standards, it's pretty darn janky, I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, it was the first real 3D game, so of course, there are gonna be some imperfections. It was a prototype game, but without that game, we wouldn't have 3D. Would we really have 3D games in the way we know them? And then other games, like the old Castlevania games, and I'll be honest, some of the older games I haven't even gotten into as much as I would like to. Like the old Castlevania games on the NES, the Super Nintendo is a different story. I really enjoy those games. But like the NES, the first two games, as much as I try, I really can't quite get into them. Maybe it's because they're too hard, maybe it's because of the awkward controls, and I just don't quite enjoy them as much as I like to. That doesn't mean I think they're bad games or that they're overrated, because they left a definite impact on the gaming industry, and something that I think is worth honoring and respecting. You know what? I'm still glad that those games existed, and I wouldn't, tell somebody that those games suck because they have bad graphics or bad controls or things that really weren't, they did the best they could with the technology that they had at the time. And I feel like a similar analogy is with film. Movies are always progressing in technology. I mean, the kind of movies we watch nowadays compared to the kind of movies that were made in the 1930s and 1920s, of course, there's a humongous difference. We have color movies, they have black and white movies. Does that mean I'm going to go back and watch an old black and white movie and criticize it for having bad special effects or this or that? Definitely not. And that's not to say, if you can't adapt to that thing, that's fine, that's you. But I think it's good to use some restraint in terms of categorizing certain things. The thing is, some of the times you'll go back to the old movies that started certain trends, and because the trends are used so much, they might not seem that special. But you must remember that those trends that we take for granted now wouldn't exist if not for those leaps and bounds in innovation that those products in the past made. And that's why I think it's very important that gaming as an art form, we should honor the past and honor the things that paved the way for the games we have now. And of course, that's not to say that every game ever released was a home run. I mean, look at Superman 64. There are some games that are objectively bad, of course, like the E.T. game. But to just throw a lot of these classic games out of the window because they don't adhere to modern game standards, I do think is pretty silly. And if you're somebody like me who loves gaming, loves it as an art and, as a culture, I guess you could call it, then it's important to honor these past games that paved the way for the games we play now. That's why I loved going to some of the little mini gaming museums that I've had the chance to go to and just seeing the progression of gaming and just looking at the history of it. It's not a long history, but it's a rich history. It's fun seeing the old Atari system, the Intellivision and stuff like that, and just seeing how far games have come, but also remembering where they came from and, what made it possible for us to have this very vibrant, very unique, one of a kind, hobby industry that we have to this day. And yeah, other games I forgot to mention in this video include games like GoldenEye 007, which I still enjoy, and I know that's a game I didn't go fully in depth with, as the other example of a game that I personally do like, although I know a lot of people also label the same things about it, especially when it comes to its control system. But I might talk about that in a sequel video if I do that, which probably will not be for a little while because I have other videos I would like to make. But I just wanted to make this video just to sort of share my thoughts on the subject. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can let me know what you thought and tell me if you agree or disagree or have anything to add, and I would be very, very pleased to hear from you soon. Thanks for watching my channel, and have a fantastic evening. So long.